So security is a top priority, and by default our SAP resources on OCI use isolated private subnets. So external access to those resources are blocked. But your SAP instances can get access to the internet, like download external packets or install packets through Oracle Cloud Net Gateway, which is configured by default with the Terraform stack used to prepare your SAP infrastructure resources. So to summarize, public access, ingress, is blocked, but egress is available for your SAP resources in the cloud. How can you access your SAP resources then? If you have configured IPsec site-to-site VPN and or have a direct bandwidth connection between your on-premises data center and your SAP on OCI environment, like Oracle Cloud Fast Connect, for example, then you can simply connect your SAP to your SAP instance on Oracle Cloud using its internal IP address. But what happens if you have not set up those services? So how can you access your resources in the cloud? That's why you need a Bastion or a Jump server instance. Put in a few words, a Bastion server is just a compute instance on a network used to access and manage devices in a separate security zone. The SAP on OCI Terraform stack creates a Jump or Bastion server for you in a public and isolated subnet that allows you to connect directly into your private SAP instances. You can also use them as a public-facing resource to transfer files from your local on-premises desktop, for example, to the cloud. You can use those Jump or Bastion servers to transfer your SAP binary files. Furthermore, the Terraform stack also installs the Linux GUI and enables VNC in case you need to access the Linux desktop in the cloud. As an optional use case, you can also use your Bastion server to hold your SAP GUI client in case you need to have an easy access to your SAP data. So let me show how it works. First, this is the Oracle Cloud UI. Let's check your Bastion server information first. So these are all the resources provisioned by your Terraform stack. So here is your Bastion Linux instance. As you can see here, the public IP address is on the screen. Now, back to your workstation. Let's check the security shell configuration for your Bastion server on your local desktop. As shown here, this is the public IP for your Bastion server, and it's pointing to the private key that I'm using when I provision the instance. Along with that, I also included other machines like the SAP database, the router, the web dispatcher, and the application server. Now, if I want to connect into my Bastion server, all I need to do is use security shell, SAP, Bastion, then there you go. I've connected into the Bastion resource in the cloud. Then I can run all the tasks that I need to run. What if I need to transfer files? For example, here in this demo folder, I have demo file. And if I want to copy this file to my SAP database in the cloud, how can I do that? I can use SCP on Mac and Linux, or I can use Wing SCP on Windows to copy this file. So for example, let's just do SCP, SAP demo file, and then all I need to do now is I just need to point to the machine where I want to upload this file into my cloud resource. So let's use SAPDB. Let's send this file to TMP folder. And now the file is being copied from my local machine to the cloud. Let's go and check that out, make sure the file is there. So let's log in into my SAP database machine, which is completely isolated. So I'm using my Bastion or Jump server to get access into that machine. Now let's go into the temp folder and check if the file is there. And it's here. So the upload was successful. This is one way using the command line, but for those users who prefer to use the GUI, how can we access our servers in the cloud using the GUI interface? It's very easy as well. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, by default, the Terraform stack provisions and configures VNC for you. So to use a VNC in the cloud, all we need is a VNC client. So let's use this public IP here For this particular demo, I have here VNC Viewer, and I have configured my VNC server. So let's just change here the public IP to the public IP address of the Bastion server. By default, it's using port 5901. So save it. Let's click twice. And there you go. This password here is set up by default. So if you want to enable your own password, please go in the GitHub, check the README file, and it explains where you can change the VNC password right here. It's available in the script SAP Bastion server. So I've changed my password. Let's go back to the VNC session and let's use the password that I've set. I just connected into the GUI interface of my machine. So this is a GUI access through the cloud using VNC client. This is one way to get access to your machine. Another option is using Serial Console, which is a feature of Oracle Cloud. So if you want to use Serial Console, go here in Console Connections, create one console connection for you. And there are two options with the Serial Console. One is a secured shell, which is similar to this SSH demo we did a few minutes ago using the jump server, or VNC. If you click here on the VNC, there's this nice command line you can copy, go back to your terminal, and just run that command, like shown here. After you do that, by default, you will get access to VNC using port 5900. Now going back here to the VNC Viewer client, I have that enabled here, so let's check the properties. As you can see here, it's pointing to the localhost 5900. Let's try that again. Click twice, and boom. We have connected again to the same VNC using Serial Console. So the cool thing about using Serial Console is that you do not need to have a public VNC access. So if you are going to use Serial Console, you do not need to enable VNC. So there are multiple ways to get access to your cloud resource in the cloud. So that's it.